What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. When cause and effect is reduced to only what happens on the surface story, it creates a dominant relationship over character. Dominance subordinates. Dominance dehumanizes. When you limit cause and effect to what happens, you're creating a character from the top down. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. Cause and effect is one of the main tenets of making your plot cohesive so that it makes sense and shapes your story. Every cause leads to an effect. It's often described as a chain reaction. One event leads to another. But when we think of cause and effect solely in what happens or what characters do, we're missing a big piece of the story. It's one of those things that's not explored deeply enough, and when taken at face value, it can lead to relatively shallow stories where things just happen to the characters. It's more focused on external events than character motive. So the characters feel more like pawns to move the plot forward, and the story feels contrived and on the surface. So what do we mean by cause? And what do we mean by effect? What's the cause? What's the effect? In today's episode, we'll go deeper so that you can use cause and effect more effectively. So let's get right to it. What's missing from most stories is cause and effect that goes deeper than what characters do or what happens as a result of what they do. For example, if an accident causes traffic to stop, Ben will be late to his date with Sarah. Or if Frank cheats on his wife, his marriage to April will be in trouble and eventually lead to divorce, or maybe she decides to buy a gun and kill him. In other words, there's a chain of events. One thing leads to another in a sequence of actions. But the best way to think about cause and effect is to start with character motive. Now, by motive, I do not mean character goals. Your character has a desire which is expressed in goals, in concrete goals. I'm often asking writers I work with, what's the purpose of this scene? What's the intention? What's the objective? And then we explore what the character wants to achieve by the end of the scene and why they have that goal to begin with. We talk about goals within the scope of the whole story, and then we talk about it within the scope of each scene. But the goal itself, the scene objective, is not the cause. What the character does in a given scene is not the cause. If Frank cheats on his wife, it's the effect, not the cause. So the goal is the effect. It's an effect of a deeper need. The effect leads to an action, a result. Those actions lead up to the sequence of events that make up your plot. So what is the cause? The cause is the character's underlying need. The goal is always preceded by a deeper need. The deeper need is the cause. Why does Frank cheat on his wife? Because they had a fight the night before and he wants to feel admired. That's the cause. The desire to cheat is the effect. So the deeper need is the cause, the goal is the effect, and what the character does to reach that goal is an action. What happens, the plot events, are not the causal chain. The character's goal or objective is not the cause. The goal itself is an effect. So the effect leads to an action, a choice. Frank makes the choice to cheat on his wife. That's the cause and effect chain. So we have a cause that leads to an effect, which leads to an action, a choice. And those actions, character choices, add up to your plot. So if you think of the inner need as the cause, the goal is the effect, which means goals alone are not enough. Cause and effect is not this happens, then this happens, then this, or the character does this, and so this happens. The cause is the inner need, the character's motive. The effect is the goal or the objective, and this leads to a series of actions that make up your plot. And this is where most writers go wrong. They're missing a crucial piece of what we mean by cause. So goals and actions are a surface expression of a deeper cause. You can never have an effect before a cause. For example, let's say your character wants a cup of coffee. The goal is to get a cup of coffee, but what's the cause? You need to sit in the need. So when he enters the scene, that's the scene goal, to get a cup of coffee. The cause, though, could be that he was up all night with his 4-year-old, or he had a fight with his wife the night before. He drank whiskey to calm his nerves and slept badly. That's the cause. His desire for the cup of coffee is the effect. So you want to build a belief in the cause. If your character wants food, you want to build belief in the hunger. If he wants a cup of coffee, you need to build belief in his exhaustion. That's the cause. The cause leads to the effect, the desire, goal, or objective. That objective leads to an action, and that's how you create a chain reaction. Okay, let's wrap this up with 3 main points to keep in mind. Number 1, you can never have an effect before a cause. Character goals and actions are a surface expression of a deeper cause. Goals and desires are the effect. So you want to build a belief in the cause, build a belief in the hunger, build a belief in the anger, build a belief in the fear. For example, at the time of this recording, Trump has won the presidential election in the United States, and approximately half the country is spinning in fear and uncertainty about the future. If that's you, use it to build belief in a character's world turning inside out and upside down. What desire will this fear and uncertainty give rise to? What desire, goal, or objective will that fear cause? What will be the effect? Point number 2. When cause and effect is reduced to only what happens on the surface story, it creates a dominant relationship over character. Dominance subordinates. Dominance dehumanizes. When you limit cause and effect to what happens, you're creating a character from the top down. You've decided before you've discovered. So don't figure out your character before you start writing. If it can be figured out, it's too small to give life to. So don't reduce character. If you've figured your character out beforehand, you've reduced his or her humanity. And point number 3, character choices should be discovered, not decided. They're a result of the cause, the inner drive, which leads to a desire, the effect, which leads to a choice. So live in the character's moment. Otherwise, you'll miss all of your character's doubts and confusions that make your character relatable. Now, some characters are aware of their objectives. They have a goal. There's no real deeper need. For example, they have to get to their job at a certain time. So it's a timing issue, a timing constraint. But there's much more going on in the lived experience of your character. So you want to create character not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Goals alone often lead to a very linear, predictable story. There's nothing wrong with a linear story. Many great stories are linear because it's the best way to tell the story. But cause and effect is not about what happens. The goal is always preceded by a deeper need. That need is the cause. The goal is the effect, and it's the action, scene by scene action, that creates your plot. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.